Soon, due to overpopulation, countries will need to reduce their population by 5% annually. Some locations either euthanize the elderly or control the number of annual births, while the USA eliminates students with the lowest scores on a test called the thinning. Due to Governor Dean's strong support for the program in Texas, his son Blake purposely fails the test to show him a lesson. Dean deceives by changing the results to substitute Blake with Laina, the most talented in the class, yet the teenagers reveal the scheme on the news. Rich students have been guaranteed success by manipulating the results for years. Dean protects his career by falsely accusing security head Mason, resulting in his son being taken away. At Blake's funeral, Dean convincingly portrays a grieving father. Georgina, his campaign manager, tells him that FBI agent Morris is on the case, so she has relocated Mason to a secret location away from the investigation. Dean can now focus on the election as he's running for president. At the same time, the press approaches Laina, but she dodges any questions regarding suing the school. Morris persists in questioning Laina at home and discloses a photo of her and Blake kissing, yet Laina insists it was merely a moment of emotions. Morris observed that Laina is burdened with debt and the responsibility of caring for her younger siblings after her mother's death. The house is constantly being surrounded by reporters. After Morris departs, Laina receives a visit from Dean's assistant Jack, who informs her that the governor wishes to meet with her. Laina agrees to meet but becomes upset when Dean suggests she join his team, realizing he wants her to speak positively about him to boost his reputation. Despite needing the money, she refuses the offer and Jack drives her home. During the journey, he releases a gas causing Laina to fall asleep. Shortly after, Laina awakens in a deserted structure, finding Jack there with other dubious individuals. Miss Cole is part of this, and she is a teacher at a school where her sibling studies. Jack and Miss Cole are actually part of an organization called The Fight, which opposes the thinning system and helps people escape the country. In order to prevent Dean from becoming president and defeat the thinning, they enlist Laina to spy on him from within. Meanwhile, Laina's friend Kellen lands a job working for the renowned journalist Wendy. Because he is new, he is currently assigned only basic tasks despite his interest in writing about the school case. Yet, he continues his research in his spare time and visits the funeral home to interview the staff, only to find out none of them dealt with Blake's body. In the evening, Callan invites Laina to accompany him to the cemetery. They unearth Blake's grave together and find that the coffin is empty. It appears that the students who failed the test are not actually punished by execution. They are covertly transported to an underground facility owned by Shuru Global and compelled to work. It's a scheme to exploit them for unpaid labor. Blake and the group are brought to a room with a large screen where a joyful video reveals they have been selected to assist the country's advancement and have a fresh start. The company guarantees that the program's most productive participant will be reintegrated into society. The students feel relieved and celebrate, while Blake remains cautious. Next, students receive a device implanted in their necks, and a rapid scan categorizes them into various sections of the factory. Blake ponders the consequences of not working, but the guards quickly force him to move. The rules are then taught to the students. Every day is divided into 3 parts, 14 hours of work, an hour for eating and personal time, and the remaining time for sleep. They need to abide by a strict curfew in that location. Blake is surprised to spot Ellie among the workers as the camera reveals the different working areas to the students. She used to be his girlfriend in high school before she failed the test last year. Blake rushes to her and kisses her, but Ellie advises him to wait for their free time instead. A nearby boy witnesses this. The couple heads to an empty room to engage in intimate activities after work. That evening, Blake realizes that some individuals, such as Heather, genuinely believe they have been selected for a significant purpose. An alarm disrupts their conversation as they notice a boy attempting self-deletion. Cage and a few others urge him to jump, but as he does, guards catch him with a net. Cage begins shouting, "Snip, snip," while Heather clarifies that those who refuse to work are taken to the infirmary and modified to be more compliant. The guy who witnessed the kiss then gestures towards Blake in the window, prompting Cage to approach him. He speaks condescendingly as he describes how Ellie is now, warning that if Blake even glances at her, he will be killed. At the cafeteria the next day, Blake observes Cage continuously kissing and touching Ellie, despite her obvious discomfort. Cage and his group, known as the Worthy, have been chosen by the company to oversee the rest of the workers and are top priority for reintegration. After the gang departs the table, Blake approaches Ellie, who advises him to leave for his safety. Cage's henchmen quickly encircle Blake and demand that he depart, prompting Blake to fight back. Although he pulls off some impressive moves, Cage quickly catches him and notifies security. Blake pushes him aside and flees with Ellie, but upon entering another room, they are surrounded by guards who violently subdue them. Blake is surprised to find out that Mason, who was moved here to stay hidden, is the leader. Mason happily greets Blake, then seeks revenge by breaking his leg. With just a few days remaining until the election, Dean persists in campaigning 8 months later. Laina has been working with his team and praising him on the news, but she secretly shares all the information with Cole and Jack. Laina is feeling fatigued due to the lack of progress, but fortunately Cole reveals a plan. Since all the necessary information is on Georgina's computer, a hacker provides Laina with a device to retrieve and duplicate the crucial files. While Kellen attempts to stay hidden, he hears everything, but Jack's team is aware of his presence. Later on, Dean must practice for the debate, and Laina steps up as his opponent, taking the opportunity to express all the negative thoughts she has about him under the guise of a performance. At the same time, Asuru Global stocks continue to rise as their technology expands worldwide. Blake works diligently at the factory and adheres to the rules to steer clear of any issues. He avoids talking to Ellie to shield her from Cage. Cage and his gang keep re-entering Blake's room at night, causing his leg to limp again every few days. Blake's visit to the infirmary raises suspicion from the doctor, who asks questions. However, Blake simply mentions that he fell. Witnessing a student getting taken to the alteration room for not working, Blake realizes reintroduction is unlikely and seeks help from the doctor, who is too afraid to act. Meanwhile, there are cage fights held during recreation time. Cage, the current champion, is extremely powerful and consistently leaves his opponents barely standing. The guards are typically inactive, but Blake persuades them to escort the newest loser to the infirmary or risk his death. Cage promises himself that one day he and Blake will have a fight when he spots her in the audience. Later, Blake seeks out Heather and requests her to discreetly notify Ellie about Cage's boxing match the following day. Heather reaches out to him, suggesting they get together instead since her relationship with Ellie is clearly done, but Blake declines. Heather later finds Ellie and informs her that Blake no longer wants to see her. She discovered that she is employed by Cage, who is assured to endorse her for reinstatement. Kellen shares his theory with Wendy in town while presenting his research, leaving out the fact that he did a lot of hacking. Asura Global manufactures the tablets used for the thinning tests, and Georgina is an employee there. Despite doubling production, the company laid off half its workforce, leading Georgina to suggest they are using automation. Kellen found out that the company is being charged for machines they never got. During his tour of the new campus, he discovered insufficient space for a manufacturing area with machines. There is no paperwork regarding outsourcing, but he found out that Asuru has been purchasing military rations for a minimum of 100,000 individuals. He believes the company is exploiting students as slaves, but lacks solid evidence, leading Wendy to ignore him. Upon entering his car, Kellen is ambushed by a masked man who attempts to suffocate him with a bag. Kellen activates the car alarm and the guy runs away, not to be caught. At home, Laina finds Blake in her room and they start kissing, only for Blake to suddenly transform into Jack. At the moment, Laina wakes up from the dream because there's someone knocking on her door. Kellen showed up with beer and blaring music, acting like he's ready to party. However, this is a ploy to conceal their meeting, and he reveals some notes to Laina explaining the situation, mentioning that Asuru is constantly monitoring. Laina assists by giving Morris a card. Laina takes her siblings to Cole's on election day, where he assures her he will keep the kids safe. After Laina departs, Cole uncovers a hidden passage at the rear of her home. Jack picks up Laina, and on the way, he reveals that he joined the fight to seek revenge for his dyslexic sister who failed an exam. The pair arrives at Asuru's building where Dean and his team await the results, and Laina kisses Jack for good fortune. Laina heads to the bathroom and locks the door before fleeing through the window moments later. With caution, she walks along the edge of the building and nearly slips during a daring jump, but she grabs on just in time and successfully makes it to the other window to access Georgina's office. By using the hacker's device, she gains access to the computer and uncovers all the factory's secrets, shedding tears upon discovering that Blake is still alive. Jack overhears Georgina mentioning she forgot something in her office while she is transferring the files, prompting him to text Laina to alert her. Laina requests additional time while Jack deceives Georgina by claiming that Dean needs to see her urgently. Upon reaching Dean and finding out Jack lied, Georgina orders her men to apprehend him. Simultaneously, the guards grow wary of Laina's delay and begin to forcefully open the lock. Fortunately, Laina completes the download and makes it back to the bathroom just in time to open the door. Upon witnessing Jack's arrest, she hurries outside to contact Morris for assistance. Blake awaits Cage at the factory, challenging him to a fight for leadership after his match. Ellie's thoughts keep going back to the breakup while the guys are fighting, causing her to stop working and head back to her room. Upon discovering her, the guards find her unconscious and attempt to touch her, leading to Ellie biting one of the guards' fingers. She attempts to fight them, but it's evident they are more powerful and they hurl her into a mirror to bring her down. Then they secure her to a stretcher to transport her to the infirmary for modification in a scene led by Heather, who is remorseful. Returning to the battle, Blake defeats Cage but extends a hand for peace. Cage reacts angrily by taking Blake down and beginning to kick him. Seeing that playing fair is futile, Blake swiftly strikes Cage with his cane. As the crowd cheers Blake becoming the new leader, an alarm suddenly interrupts the moment. After Heather arrives and informs them about Ellie, Blake gathers Cage and the group for a discussion. He clarifies that there is no way back to society, leading the men to agree to assist him with a plan. Shortly after, Blake comes back to work and sustains an injury in one of the machines, prompting a guard to escort him to the infirmary with assistance from another worker. Cage and another individual intentionally initiate a fight in the cafeteria. Eventually, all the other teenagers join in, and chaos erupts in the cafeteria, leading the guards to intervene to restore order. After the alarm goes off, Blake and his friend overpower the guards in the hallway and steal their keys effortlessly. Then Blake heads to the infirmary and incapacitates the doctor before she can use her drill on Ellie. Blake is caught off guard by a second doctor who seizes him, prompting Blake to grab a syringe to defend himself before incapacitating the doctor. Next, Blake and Ellie kiss before he removes the trackers from their necks using a scalpel. Mason storms into the cafeteria and starts attacking kids angrily, but Cage remains silent. Mason then looks at the tracker on his phone and discovers that Blake is responsible. He tracks the couple to the infirmary, but they have already left. Blake and Ellie are wearing doctors' uniforms and moving around without being noticed. Laina and Morris meet on a rooftop where Laina hands her the device containing the information, providing a detailed explanation of all she knows. Morris suspects Laina is being monitored and requests her belongings, then abruptly smashes her phone. She reveals her corruption and pulls out a gun, instructing Laina to jump to stage it as a self-deletion. At Cole's tunnel, a rebel is exposed as a double agent, shoots the hacker, and then kidnaps a child. While Georgina threatens his children, the kid bites his hand to defend himself, and Cole uses a piece of wood to subdue him. Subsequently, she fatally assaults him. Returning to Morris, she becomes distracted by her phone ringing, allowing Laina to push her to the ground and snatch the device before fleeing. Morris starts shooting at her, forcing Laina to leap through a window and end up in an elderly man's apartment. The device dropped into a bucket of water, prompting Laina to bring it to Kellen in the hopes that he can fix it. Kellen places it in rice and applies heat to speed up the process. The trick is successful, prompting Kellen to quickly duplicate all files onto a second hard drive as a precaution. He then departs to bring the device to Wendy and instructs Laina to remain in the house for safety. But when Kellen turns on his car, it detonates and fatally injures him. Seeing Morris and his men approaching, a shocked Laina quickly grabs the hard drive and a few items to prepare a trap. Upon entering, the men unintentionally step on it, causing the apartment to explode. Laina flees via the roof and is discovered by Morris. The women engage in a fight, with Morris overpowering her easily, but Laina surprises her with a knife, stabbing her before throwing her down the stairs, ultimately causing her death. Dean and his team discover he won the election and immediately begin celebrating. Cole successfully escorts Laina's siblings out of the tunnel and into a different country. Laina arrives at the TV station and locates Wendy to hand over the hard drive. Wendy cancels election coverage and sends choppers to Asuru after learning about Kellen's death. Blake and Ellie stumble upon a hatch in the factory, which takes them to the tunnels while Mason follows them secretly. After walking for a long time, they come across a set of stairs and manage to make their way back to the surface, but their location remains a mystery to them. Mason attacks Blake out of nowhere, sparking another confrontation as the teens band together to fight him. Mason gains the upper hand over Blake and attempts to choke him, but becomes distracted by a helicopter overhead. Ellie takes the opportunity to use a rock against Mason. The helicopter captures everything, and soon the entire nation witnesses Blake's survival on the news. Dean panics, but Georgina reassures him that she has everything under control. Shortly after, Blake is taken to the TV station and then attempts to kiss him, but hesitates upon noticing Ellie's presence. In the meantime, Dean delivers his inaugural speech as president. Georgina utilizes her newfound power to have the police pursue everyone who opposed Dean, resulting in Blake, Ellie, and Laina's arrest. While the police car carrying the teenagers drives onto the road outside town, it is unexpectedly struck and tips over, leading to an accident. The doors open and Jack, who is revealed to be with the FBI, asks the teens to assist him in battling Dean.